Hey everyone, long time no see. I just wanted to come on because I've been seeing a lot of it recently, but post-separation abuse. Now, I actually have a story for this one because, um, well, it statistically is happening way more than it previously was, and this is what this platform's for, just to share. Um, I am terrible at editing videos, absolutely terrible. So I don't actually tend to edit the videos. I tried, I suck, and it is what it is at this point. Sorry. But it is so sad to see how often post-separation abuse is happening. And like I said, it actually did happen to me and was happening to me for years, until 2024. And even now there's like little spouts of abuse, little spouts of trying to control the narrative and the situation. But I guess it doesn't affect me as much anymore, especially since I've got remarried and worked on myself, done a lot of healing, a lot of dealing with the things that were allowing me to be put in a position where I was reacting, if that makes sense. So I guess story time, because why not? Some people might ask why I'm smiling or why I giggle or laugh or chuckle or any of that. Okay, it's because it's how I deal with things. Plain and simple, how I deal with things. If I don't laugh or chuckle or have a stone straight face, I will just cry. And quite frankly, I've spent a lot of tears and time on this situation. So it actually happened to me twice, with one of my with two of my exes, two different exes. One of them, both of them, blah, blah. One of them, it stopped after I'd actually moved away. So I ended up actually having to move away to get away from the situation. I couldn't tell him where I lived, even though we had a child together, and I had to keep myself safe. I had to keep our son safe, our child safe. And then the second time that it happened, which has only recently stopped, I ended up actually losing my son, my child. I want to keep this as almost private as possible, but also not, because this is what I'm coming on here to speak about. So like these things, to raise awareness around it, to also say that it's absolutely okay to go through these things and to come out the other side, because again, when you're going through things like this, you don't think that it's okay to be okay, or you don't feel that you should be okay. And I mean, there's probably going to be a lot of opinion, judgment, about how I actually handled the situation towards the end. But again, when you're sharing your life on the internet, unfortunately, fortunately, people will have their own opinions and their own judgments, perspective, etc. So everybody's entitled to that. So I'll just start with the story, the one where I lost my son, because this is the most recent. It traumatized me, to the point that I do actually have a bit of PTSD from it, and even if I see some paperwork now, even a bit of paperwork that reminds me of it, or previous paperwork from the situation, again, it all affects me negatively. I'm still trying to process and still trying to work through a lot of it. But essentially, so I'd known this person I've known them now 16 years. When we first got together, I'd known them for about 9 years, 10 years, before we'd even started in a relationship. So I'd known him about 9-10 years prior to getting in a relationship with him. Stupidly, I kind of knew what he was like, but I'd recently got out of another relationship. Not recently, but recent enough to know that I hadn't healed from that previous relationship. But obviously at the time, I think when we first got together, I was about 19, 20, I think. So I then, we started going out. 3 months down the line, I find out I was pregnant. I actually started uni at this point and then made the decision to obviously take a step back from education to look after my third and final child. I didn't know it was going to be my final at the time, but that's another story which we can get into at some point. However, so I fell pregnant 3 months into the relationship and had him in June 2018. Then from there, the relationship was quite rocky, quite abusive. We moved from one place to another place I think we moved 3 times in that entire relationship. 4 times if you count this house that I live in now. Anyway, during that relationship, it was quite toxic, unhealthy. There was a lot of situations that shouldn't have happened but did happen. We ended up further apart than we were together, and it wasn't working for either of us. So we broke up. Before the relationship had ended, he told me that I would never be happy again, and essentially that I would lose all of my children. That didn't happen, but I did lose the child that I did have with him. And I say I lost him. His dad got custody through court, which is a whole process. When I first started going to court with him, everybody was saying how they're all for the mum. They take the mum's side. They blame the dad. It's all very sexist and very one-sided, and people don't get listened to. Now, I've gone in to court. Social services were also involved at this point. So we've gone into court. He's managed to get custody of our son. I mean, there was things that led on to this prior to that happening, but he was very much trying to get that ball rolling before any of this actually happened, unfortunately, and I found it very unfair. But again, prior to all of this, we were going to go 50-50. He then ended up taking me to court and getting full custody. Now, my son, our son, was with him for about 2.5 to 3 years. So the beginning of 2022 until 2024. Oh, so it's actually only 2 years that he was with him. And during that time, my son was not having a very good time. It was not a very good situation for him to be in. And again, can talk about all of this if people are interested and want to follow and etc. for more of the story on that one. But yeah, so he wasn't getting treated very well. I wasn't getting treated very nicely because he had control of our son and whether he was able to see me, and his siblings that were also under my care, who have different fathers to our child. So he would stop contact, and he'd start contact, and he'd stop contact. And at one point I didn't see him for 9 months. I did nothing, but he was allowed to do that, and social services backed him. So we'd be in and out of court. The whole court process was very acrimonious, very tit for tat, very she did this, he did that, she did this, he did that. Say he tripped over at my house, or him and his brother got into a bit of a fight, or anything, the tiniest little cut, bruise, anything, any reason for him to stop contact with me, he would do. Now our son is 2.5, coming up 3, when all of it well, it was for 2 years. So as you can imagine, from about 2.5 to about 4.5, he had very inconsistent contact, inconsistent sibling relationship, inconsistent, unstable relationship with his maternal family, because his dad wanted the control, wanted to stop contact, wanted to stop that relationship, and courts were enabling him to do this. Obviously, you're always told, if you have parental responsibility and you believe your child to be unsafe, absolutely stop contact. Absolutely. 100%. If you believe your child is in danger, you stop contact. Full up, straight up, stop contact, keep them safe, regardless of who it is, whether it's grandparents, whether it's the other parent, whether it's a guardian, whatever, sibling, anything, you stop contact until you know that that child is safe. 9 months I didn't see our son, and my mental health was declining. I was having suicidal thoughts. I wanted to harm myself. I still had 2 children at home, but I was struggling, and there wasn't anything that anybody could do, because he was doing what he knew would hurt me, because he was my baby. I breastfed him for 2.5 years before he actually got taken, and as soon as I stopped breastfeeding, he was gone. Now, it breaks any parent, man, woman, it doesn't matter, but if you can't see your child, even if you have 2 at home, and I was trying so hard to be strong for those children that I had at home, but your guilt, your shame, your brain as well, it just talks negatively at you and tells you that you're not good enough, and it tells you that they're doing this for a reason, that you deserve it. And then when you are fighting your brain anyway and telling it that you are enough, or you're trying to tell your brain that you are enough and that you can do this, you can get through it, and you just need to be strong, it starts to kind of build you up a little bit. It starts to kind of help. But what really, I started to really get into spirituality. I realized that the more control I gave him, the easier it was for him to hurt me. Now, I needed to start controlling my reactions, because that's exactly what he wanted. He wanted to hurt me, regardless of what it did to our child, to how it made him feel, our child feel, because that's not what he cared about. It was how much he could hurt me because of how much I hurt him by leaving him, because I didn't want my 3 children growing up in a situation where they wouldn't feel good enough, where they were experiencing domestic abuse. I didn't want that for them, and nobody wanted to listen. Literally nobody. The courts, social services, counsellors, mental health workers, advocates, anybody, nobody wanted to listen. I could scream it from the rooftops, even when I didn't see my son for 9 months, because out of those 2 years I didn't see him for about a year consistently, for the whole time that because he'd stop it for weeks, and then I'd get to see him again, and then he'd stop it again, and it was a very pick situation. He got to pick when I got to see him, because it's whatever worked for him. He'd miss days off school because he'd have bruises. He'd tell me things that were happening at home, and I would try and do something about it, and nobody would listen. And again, they believed it to be a tit for tat situation, because that's how my ex-husband had made them see it, because he was the one with the leg up, because he managed to safeguard our son, which again is another story. I can go into it if people are interested. If not, then that's absolutely fine. But at the moment, it's just making sure people know that it's okay to move on is essentially what this is about. But it basically 2024, I had finished. I'd had enough of the fighting, the custody battle, the trying to make sure that my son was safe, because nobody cared. So my son got strangled in December 2023. He told me. I rang the relevant authorities, social services, the police, etc. I did what I was supposed to do. I even spoke to his dad, and nothing came of it. Social services said no, absolutely fine, it's nothing to be worried about, it didn't happen, etc. I've spoken to his dad. His dad's told me this has happened, da da da. Okay, well, I've just been told that he's been strangled, but okay, what are you supposed to do in that situation? Because I'd taken him to court, I'd tried to get CAFCAS involved, I did everything I possibly could, and it wasn't enough. So yeah, that happened in December 2023, and by February 2024, after going to court twice already, I told them that I was going to take a stand back. I told them that I wanted to see him once a week for dinner. I think I possibly said sleepover on a Wednesday, and then I drop him to school on the Thursday, and that would be my contact. Because I didn't want to be this inconsistent void in his life. I didn't want his dad to have that hold over our relationship anymore. I wanted him, as much as I know that his dad would have said, because he did tell him that I didn't care about him and that I was doing this and that I only wanted to see him once a week because that's what I wanted. I didn't want that. I wanted to see him. I wanted to have him. I wanted 50-50 at least, minimum. But I wasn't allowed any of that. I could have gone to court and I could have fought and fought and fought and still got to the point where I was only seeing him what I was seeing him. So I said I'll do Wednesdays after school. And a week after that, I had a phone call from the school asking me to pick him up because he'd been strangled again. "5 years old, and he'd been strangled again." The police NFA'd it after I got custody, because I went back to court and I said that this is completely unacceptable. And he absolutely cannot live in a house where he's going to get strangled. Or any of the other things that were happening to him. And finally, the social worker that had said it was fine prior, back in January, that he didn't get strangled, was then telling me that he did get strangled in the February and that he was to be coming back to me. And obviously then I had to take it back to court because we'd already had a court order in place, and when you have a court order in place, you then have to take it back to court to amend the court order and basically fight your case again. And to be honest, the school and social services didn't even know if they could give him to me prior to this because of the court order that was in place, even if it was to safeguard him. They were gonna get hold of his paternal grandparent and ask them to have him over his mother, who had been risk assessed as safe and had 2 children at home. So moral of the story is the court system are aiding and enabling abusers to continue post-separation abuse. Even if there is evidence, even if nothing is actually looked into properly. Moral of the story is I've spent the last, because in 2024 that was our last, no it wasn't, our last court case was in 2025, because I had to stop contact due to a safeguarding issue. Now, that was our last court since he's been put in my custody. And I'm not planning on going back to court again, because it's absolutely diabolical. It's probably the easiest and only way to say it. Absolutely diabolical. And I wouldn't recommend. If you can settle outside of court and know that you have that legal, that agreement between you, make sure it's signed, make sure you've got witnesses, make sure you've got evidence, and have that agreement between the parents, and don't involve court if you can, because they do not do what is in the best interest of the child. They fight against it. They don't listen to reason, and they certainly do not try and help. And when you are trying to tell them that there was an abusive situation, and they still try and stick you in the same damn room as each other, and people need to start stomping their feet, because it's absolutely ludicrous. And actually, if you were getting told to go for a drugs test, do not cut your bloody hair, because the woman, if she's got long hair, she's got months and months worth of evidence as to whether she's bloody taken drugs or not. And the man can just go and cut his hair and say, oh, it was due a haircut. Or if you're a woman with short hair, you can do the same. Because I am not sexist here at all. What's good for the goose is good for the gander. At the end of the day, whatever happens to a man can happen to a woman, and vice versa, etc. Whether you have a penis or a vagina, it doesn't matter. You absolutely, in those situations, should be treated equally and fairly. And yeah, if you go for a drugs test, don't cut your freaking hair, because the judge doesn't even bloody do anything about it anyway. So I mean, if you've got something to hide, cut your fucking hair. If you don't because it's ludicrous. But that's my story of post-separation abuse, and the fact that it literally continued, because we broke up in 2019 and it continued for 4 years. 5 years after we broke up, it continued. And still, to this day, still tries to a degree. Actually, so it's still trying, because I don't even get child maintenance or child support for our child that is now living with me, due to choice as well. It's not because of finances, it's a choice. But again, nobody can do anything, nobody says anything, and nobody wants to help. So I mean, what on earth are you supposed to do other than start trying to raise awareness, trying to help other people, and trying to do something about it? It's just what? Anyway, thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe.